got me twisted.
All right, well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about the resurrection of Gavin Stone? Stick around and find out. Just as I am without one plea, but that thy blood was and then I should have like little figures that are walking down an aisle or something, right? Anyway. That's what this movie made me think of. If you're not familiar with that song, it's an old hymn that a lot of churches used to, maybe still do, use at the end of their, kind of evangelistic services where they're kind of calling people to come to the altar and accept Jesus. That's, a significant part of this movie, as you might guess. I'm Peter Franson, by the way, from Christian Geek Central and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of the resurrection of Gavin Stone. And, spoilers, with a title like that, there's going to be a come to Jesus moment in this movie. But I'll get to that in a little bit. First off, I should say that I usually avoid Christian movies like the plague, and the content that I'm creating is specifically for Christian geeks. So you might be asking yourself, Peter, this movie doesn't have any lasers, it doesn't have any dragons or cool spells. Why are you talking about this movie? Well, because as geeks, more so than I think other folks, we are really into entertainment and just appreciating and enjoying the potential of entertainment. And so I like to keep my finger on the pulse of where Christian entertainment is at. And this movie had the first trailer I'd seen in a long time of a Christian-produced movie, and I know that's, what does that really mean? Was The Passion of the Christ by Mel Gibson or the movie Luther, do those count as Christian movies? Because there's lots of, Hollywood mechanisms going on in the creation of those movies. So, but I'm talking about movies that are like produced, filmed, directed by Christians, largely acted by Christians, written by Christians, distributed maybe even by Christians or by some kind of Christian label of a larger, studio or distribution, whatever you call it. So this, I'm not setting a precedent. I'm not going to start reviewing every Christian movie that comes out. This was just a trailer. I saw the trailer for this. I was like, this looks like it could be a step up from what has been done before in terms of Christian movies. So I went to see if that was the case. So the synopsis is this is from IMDb, a washed up former child star forced to do community service at a local megachurch pretends to be a Christian to land the part of Jesus in their annual Passion play, only to discover that the most important role of his life is far from Hollywood. All right. Anyway, as far as like the story, the script, and the pacing goes, I would call this kind of like a 50-50 split between a comedy and a drama. The script involves definitely lots of humor. There are frequently bits of what is like forced humor to me, but again, if you haven't heard me say this before, I'm usually not a fan of comedies. I usually don't laugh at comedies. I don't find the Marvel movies funny at all, except for like maybe the Iron Man movies and some of Ant-Man. I'm not a good indicator of what people will think is funny. But anyway, but from my perspective, I thought that a number of the jokes in here were forced, just like I feel this, but I feel the same way about the Marvel movies. So, but also much of the humor surprisingly worked for me. That was the big shocker, because I don't really laugh at comedies most of the time. It takes a really unique and unusual comedy to really get me to laugh out loud. And I found myself chuckling frequently in this movie, which was really surprising to me. I think especially if you like humor based on awkward social interaction, this one might be worth a try for you. Like, I cringe watching the first season of The Office. It gets funnier for me and more enjoyable for me after that, but the first season is kind of like, oh my gosh, this is really uncomfortable. And I often felt the same here, and in addition to, chuckling at some bits. Now, especially early on, I felt some dialogue should have been cut in favor of letting the performances carry character moments. I was just like, it reminded me of some scripts that I've seen on like episodes of the CW's The Flash, where I'm just like, you don't need to have this person actually say that. If you just let the actor perform, we can tell that they're feeling this certain way. They don't have to actually come out and say it, And so I thought that some of the same problems were happening in the script here. Is like, no, I get. You don't have to tell me. I saw it in their performance just a second ago that they felt this way. They don't have to say anything, and saying it at this point is too much. to feel realistic, I should say. The script frequently makes fun of some staples of church culture. One example is is like when Gavin, the main character, is trying to convince everybody that he's a Christian. He's kind of up in front giving his testimony, and he's just saying these really kind of vague, like, quotes from bumper stickers, all this kind of like stuff that doesn't have any really substance to it. It's just stuff he's heard places, and the Christians that are there listening are going, oh, yeah, and they're really taking it in as though it's profound. And I just thought, that's a really good snapshot of what is very common in Christian culture, and that is to just kind of like act or be willing to think of something as spiritual and profound without really thinking it through, without really discerning whether or not what is being said is something that we ought to affirm, and I think that's an example of how we as Christians are guilty, just as non-Christians, of kind of giving credit and thinking of things as spiritual and profound without really thinking them through. And so I thought that was just a nice thing. And there was tons of stuff like that throughout the movie that was just kind of making fun of these little idiosyncrasies that you discover if you've been going to church for a while, that just kind of happen and people do. It's a little bit unusual. It also shows that church people are still just people with quirks and flaws and shortcomings like anybody else, and I think that's a really valuable thing to do. And it also is fodder for a lot of humor in the movie. Most importantly, in terms of the way the script portrays faith and the church, faith is not oversimplified in this movie. There's still conflict among Christians, and there's still difficulty in forgiving others. The tone and the groundedness of the script and the characters felt uneven to me and bumpy, as jokes would go from making me chuckle to like a second later making me cringe. It's like, no, that's forced. You're ruining it. You're ruining it. You should have stopped a second ago. So there's all these little snips that I would have made all over, in terms of the editing of the film or the script. But it had numerous scenes and moments that worked. And worked really well, which surprised me. Given the number of things that were bumpy, I wouldn't have expected there to be, so many scenes that not only were, oh, that was good, but like, wow, that really worked. Like, that really made me laugh, or that really moved me in some way. The main conflict in the story was really predictable in both its nature and its resolution. I mean, I think a lot of people will just kind of see what the conflict is and, and how it's going to be resolved. And that left me bored and impatient during the 10 to 15 minutes that are supposed to be the climax of this movie, because I'm like, yes, I've seen this before in a romantic comedy or whatever it is. I've seen this. You're just inserting different surface things, but like all these beats, I was like, okay, he's gonna do this, then he's gonna apologize, and blah 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 blah, and it just made me like want to get the whole thing moving so that we can resolve the story. But what was cool is that the change in Gavin's character, which is indicated by the title of the movie, actually comes after the climax, after the main conflict is resolved, and his transformation in character, that moment, actually wasn't a single moment, and it was handled very creatively, and it brought out the heart of the gospel in a way that was powerful and that caught me off guard. The highest praise I can give, I think, to the script is that while it's not great, it might be the best Christian movie script I know of. I'm not sure, but it might be, and certainly is on par with many smaller budget mainstream films or TV movies or episodes of The Flash. Let's see here. Let me talk about the cast a little bit. Not a lot of familiar faces. There might be some that's like, I've seen that person from somewhere. There were a few like that for me. And for some reason, IMDb has a completely incomplete list of the cast. And so I'm like, crap, I can't solve that mystery of who this person was. So I don't know what that's about. But anyway, this is also possibly the best assemblage of performances that I've seen in a Christian quote-unquote movie. Only one character, played by WWE wrestler Shawn Michaels, felt artificial to me at times, and even then his character worked well for me nearly as many times as it didn't. So I think that was really good casting. I think maybe just he as a performer did not line up with what the script was wanting to do. I think with a little bit of rewriting and maybe just a little bit of editing, his performance could have worked just as well as the others, or at least pretty close. Everyone else, including those in smaller roles, felt very solid to me, giving performances that I thought elevated the script and validated the script, and had me both laughing, which is again a rare thing for me in comedies, and genuinely moved numerous times throughout. Especially more on the comedy side, I was moved maybe less than a handful of times during the movie, and one time to the point of tears, which really surprised me. Now, some of that, I bring in. Who I am as a Christian, what I believe, what I value, and so there are going to be things in here that are going to be powerful to me because of that. At the same time, I don't want to downplay and have that fact make illegitimate the power of this movie, because that's how we are with every drama that we watch, every movie that we watch. We bring who we are, and who we are determines how we react, and if we react emotionally to different things. So I don't want to give the movie too much credit, but neither do I want to dismiss it just because I brought my beliefs as a Christian into the theater with me. Let's see here. What else? There were some times where either the script or the editing. I've said this before. There was just some things that I think should have been cut that would have made an overall better experience. But all in all, I thought that the performances and the script gave something better than I've ever seen before in a full-on Christian movie. Okay, so I always try to ask myself when I watch movies, is there any kind of philosophical, moral, or spiritual themes or ideas that might stimulate worthwhile thought or conversation as a result of seeing this movie? And unsurprisingly, yes, definitely with this one. The title, as I said, gives this away, but Gavin Stone has this come to Jesus moment near the climax. What I love, as I think I said earlier, is that it doesn't happen, first, it doesn't happen while he's crying and praying by himself somewhere, nor does it involve some formula-based prayer that feels like it's intended by the writer to teach the audience what it means to have that moment where you believe in Jesus as your Savior. Where a character might pray, "I do believe that you died for my sins and that you rose again for me. Please forgive me and come into my life," etc., etc. Those kinds of things that are often, part of the crucial ingredients to becoming a Christian, which I have some. That's a whole different topic, but I have some doubts about what some people consider these crucial ingredients. Anyway, his moment of transformation, his moment of rebirth or resurrection, as you would say, based on the title of the movie, it happens after the main story conflict, and it's resolved in a way that I found subtle and realistic, in that it comes about as the result of him playing the part of Jesus and kind of things finally clicking, and him understanding who Jesus was, what he taught, and what he did for us, and its subtlety made it more powerful to me, in addition to it feeling a little bit more organic. Anyway, the major theme in this movie, I think, is probably grace, the undeserved favor that Jesus offers in forgiveness, and what that looks like in a community that's committed to giving each other grace. It's a fictional example mirroring many true stories of how Jesus, through a gracious church community, can take just a wasted life that's been devoted to purposeless things and turn it around into something beautiful. You could view this as another movie trying to witness to unbelievers, and maybe that's part of the intent. But but I'm not sure that is the primary intent. I think that also this movie, intentionally or not, could be a call to us as believers to accept grace from God, recognize that we have that grace and forgiveness from God, and give grace to each other as we are part of a community together, because the local church and its people are God's hands and his feet. They are his primary mechanism that he uses to draw people to himself. And you and I can choose to stand on the sidelines or to be an active, intentional part of that by giving grace to other people. All right, well, I have no idea what your taste is in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, "Hey, Peter, wait and Redbox this one. It's not the kind of thing you're going to want to pay full price to see in the theater. Few movies are. And you also avoid Christian movies like the plague, but this one is worth seeing once. You'll never feel drawn to seeing it again after that, but it will be a good one-time experience when you have some time to kill, and give you more hope than ever that Christian movies can eventually be great, even though this movie is not quite there yet. It's rated PG-13 for thematic elements, including a crucifixion image. All right, those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. Visit spiritblade.com and check out the stuff that we have for you there, including a bunch of audio dramas and our weekly podcast. And then please like, share, and subscribe if you like this video, want to share it with others, and want more videos like it. And then, boom! I hope you come and join us at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. I'm experimenting. I'm using my phone this time, so I got to go up here and push this.